Hello, everyone. Welcome to the new episode of Behind the Success. In today's episode, we have Ritam Bhatnagar with us. He has a lot of tags, I would say, and he has been wearing a lot of hats, being being into sales, being into the entrepreneurial side, being into a mentor and a guest faculty with a lot of campuses. So, thank you for accepting my invite and being part of the show.
Thank you, Gaurav. In fact, the moment you told me that you are also a global shaper, I think there was a instant bro thing that came in. I was like, hey, I'm going to meet someone who is a very like-minded individual. So pleasure is all mine.
Thank you. That's really, I would say, that connection really comes when you find a common connection. And I think it's the same feeling if you meet any Indian abroad. You just feel like, oh, that's an instant connection you feel with the individual. So I definitely connect to that.
Yes.
All right. So before we dive into a little personal, a quick question to me is, quick question from me to you is, if you want to tell about India Film Project to someone who is very close to you, okay, and how would you explain? And second question here itself is that what India Film Project means to you?
Okay, so the first one is very tricky because I'll tell you, except for my immediate family, my relatives don't understand what am I trying to do. My mama still thinks that I am an event management guy. So it becomes really tricky for me to explain someone what India Film Project is. So if I have to put it in really 60 seconds, it would be about realizing that as humans, we all were born with this ability to create something, right? That's what differentiates us from different species, from other species. That's a differentiating thing, that we could create wheel, we could create our own shelters, we could create wall art, we could create fire, we could create multiple different things. And that's what brought us to what we are today across. Creation is a very natural thing to humans. We are first creators and second consumers. Everyone consumes, every species consumes, but rarely a species which creates something. So we have been the lucky species for that. Unfortunately, since last 300, 400, 500 years, we became more of consumers and less of creators. So most of us consume, very few of us create. And the same applies not just to science and technology, but also to arts and different creative fields across. So the simple most motto of IFP is, how do we make more people creators again? How do we make them express through any of the domains? So not just probably say films, though it's called India Film Project, it's very less to do with films, which is an irony in ourselves. And in fact, this morning meeting, I was telling my team, how do we probably, it's time aa gaya that we start renaming ourselves, because everyone thinks India Film Project has to do with films, and we have been like just dragging away ourselves from films and trying to do more for creators in general. So if you have pressed that record button, if you have picked up the pen, if you have opened your mouth to tell your story, if you have even thought about something that is creatively different, that is about creating, I think that's what we want to celebrate together. So India Film Project is a celebration of creation. That's the simple most way of putting it across. I know I told you 60 seconds, but I can't explain IFP in less than 5 minutes to anyone.
I understand. And I think this is where the real passion comes in, because when you're passionate about something, you eventually go on, and that's clearly visible. Again, since you talked about creation, and if I remember it right, I read somewhere on the website in the about section, and the line says, we think God in creating humans somewhat underestimated their ability, right? And
Right.
I personally, this actually made me think a lot, and it also gave me a question to think the other way, that the generation, if I see, and specifically I am talking about let's say our generation and coming generation, uh, I feel that humans are somewhat creating more boundaries, somewhat they are trying to limit themselves in terms of becoming more invincible, if I say so. What do you say on that?
I think humans are trying to copy rather than create. So every boundary that we're talking about is coming from this idea that, hey, I want to become like this. Hey, I want to do something like this person. Most of the people, so that would be say 95 out of 100 people I meet across, they are trying to do something in their life, keeping someone else in their mind. They are saying, hey, career iske jaisa chahiye, hey, friend group aisa chahiye, ghar iske jaisa chahiye, Instagram profile aisa chahiye. So everyone is trying to do something which is already existing. People are just trying to be like someone all the time, and that's what starts creating boundaries, because the moment you are trying to replicate, it's like cut copy paste. It's an inbuilt feature. So cut copy paste will never give you original thoughts coming across. So I think the boundaries that we are trying to create, everyone, and that's not just probably limited to generation of millennials and Gen Z. It's also uh, about the elder generation, which to an extent earlier had their own thought processes. We are borrowing thought processes, we are borrowing opinions. If you meet people around you, just try to figure out how many of your friends actually have their own opinion these days. Be it anything, be it football, be it politics, be it any, even food. People usually start borrowing opinions. The moment you start borrowing skills and opinions and thoughts, you are trying to actually create a boundary without realizing that you are just thinking lesser of yourself. So I think this entire idea of creating boundary comes from this entire, I don't know how much do we blame social media for that, but to an extent, the moment social media opened us into sneaking and peeking into lives of other people, I think that just created this entire proposition of, hey, this is what I want to do. There is no original thought, right? For example, uh, people buy dresses looking at what other person is wearing. Oh, इसने ये पहना, आजकल ये चल रहा है. Just think of it, 20 years back, 30 years back, ये कुछ exist भी नहीं करता था 20 years, 10 years back तक. Most of the people were trying to live their own life. I think that's a very generic social phenomena that we are going through. And probably we'll also come back to our normal selves in a couple of years. But I think this is what social media has brought in as a change to our lives. I don't know if I have answered what you were trying to ask.
No, you did. You did. In fact, this actually made me a little curious, and I was about to ask you something, but I would go and I would like to get deeper into this, because I also believe that we all are stories in one form or the other, and whatever we are doing today is somewhat a reflection of stories we lived or the choices we made. So I would like to know that. Uh, Tell me something more about your childhood or early age memories, where you strongly felt about uh, that we are becoming more of consumers, and there is a time that you need to I mean, the generation need to be more of a creators.
Okay, so my childhood memories have been like very different, because thankfully I my dad is an astrophysicist and someone who is an astronomer in real sense. Like, he has built one of the largest telescopes of India, and I have seen him building that, like right from conceptualizing when I was 2 year old to making it happen when I was 12, 13 year old, to me boasting across the entire school. Like, I remember my school used to organize a trip to my father's observatory for students. Like, so I used to be boasting it across, saying that, hey, the only observatory in Western India. Hey, see, this is what my dad made across. So I think my childhood was very exposed, unlike typical 90s kids. So I remember having the first personal computer at our home, and the only one in city, when I was 2 year old. This is, I'm talking about 1991, right? So that was, I remember to a point where the mayor and the municipal commissioner and people from authorities used to come visit our home just to see what a computer looks like, because this is typically 90s, early 90s, when मेरे कंप्यूटर का हार्ड डिस्क was 10 MB. Windows used to occupy 3 MB. This is Windows 3.0, and I still had 7 MB, and we used to think 7 MB में क्या करेंगे, because मेरे पास जो games थे ना, वो सारे KBs में चलते थे. So I have seen that, and the biggest joy I think I remember was my 6th or 7th birthday, when my dad upgraded the 10 MB hard disk to a 100 MB one. That was the joy that I would have experienced back then, saying that I have 100 MB of hard disk, game to 1 MB ka aata, I can actually store 100 games inside. So my childhood was pretty much exposed, because dad used to travel across the world. So mere ghar mein, if you see, the first time I watched the Bollywood film would have been in my probably higher secondary school. Tab tak I was largely exposed to a lot of world cinema, a lot of French films, a lot of Turkish films, Japanese films. I've seen, even if I didn't understand, I've seen those films in subtitles. I probably realized that, hey, there are so many different cultures and probably we are not the only culture that exists across. Now when you are so much exposed to different things, I also remember as a kid, I did my first video editing when I was 7, in my 6th or 7th standard. So I remember 6th standard में मेरे स्कूल में कंप्यूटर लैब खुला था जिसमें सबको टाइपिंग ट्यूटर सिखाते थे. That's the same year I compiled my first program on Visual Basic. And 7th standard में I edited my first video because we didn't have a graphic card. So I knew how to do basic editing. So this was the new time जब नए नए वो digicams आए थे. So I remember my dad getting one digicam from Canada, and I shot my brother's birthday party, put it into my laptop, edited it, and then I used to download random footages and then edit them into something. And for me, that was the joy of exploring, saying that, hey, this machine can do so much, and I am trying to create something altogether different. For me, if I have to talk about myself, I've never been a creator as such. I have been an hobbyist for a lot of things. Like I have a huge list of things that I collect and I take up as hobbies, but I've never been creators, but always been the curious person who wants to know, how does this work? How does creation happen? How is a film made? For example, my childhood, if I have to remember two things that I wanted to learn, one was how to become an astrophysicist like my dad, how to become a scientist, and second, how a film is made. Because I remember those vague shots from childhood जहाँ पे there is a crew and there is some camera, but suddenly जब फिल्म देखते हैं तब ऐसा कुछ दिखता ही नहीं है, तब सिर्फ सीन्स के ऊपर सीन्स दिखते हैं. I was like, ये कैसे होता है? So cut to my MBA days, I was interning with a film festival, and that was my first taste when I met a lot of filmmakers. And in that entire process of 6-7 months that I was working there, I got to understand filmmaking from a completely different angle. Like for the first time, I knew कि production, pre-production सुना हुआ है, but how does that work, right? So I think my first taste was understanding that, hey, this is a process of how film is made, and I self-learned it. I didn't go to internet. I learned it from the people who were actually making it, who also didn't go to a film school or internet. They also self-learned it. So I think that is where, for me, a lot of learning started coming in. And I was amazed saying that एक camera लेके, एक thought लेके, people can make something that can make you emote. I remember watching films that are animated. I used to watch Toy Story, used to be my favorite film. It's made out of a computer animation, and I still cry when I see that film today. How is that even possible? Like, just think of creation from that perspective. Not even real people. You are talking about animated objects, which in all your consciousness, even as a kid, that this does not exist. And yet it can make you cry, and it can make you laugh, and it can make you feel for that character even after couple of months and couple of years, right? I still feel bad for Woody. So I can sense what kind of feeling that is. So when I touched base with filmmakers during my internship, I got to know about what filmmakers do and how do they actually become filmmakers and how do they make films. And the second thing is, I realized that this is a very unorganized industry, typically because everyone is a freelancer. Everyone is trying to grow on their own. No one is trying to grow together. So it's typically unorganized on multiple levels, and not just not just in India. It's as a format, this industry is typically unorganized in most of the countries, right? Except for Western country, with a couple of countries जहाँ पे studio model is there, so the film industry is more corporatized. Everywhere in India, you go to Bombay, every third person you will meet is wanting to do something with films, is wanting to make a film, or wanting to shoot a film, or wanting to act, or wanting to write something they are wanting to do. Now, as a single person, it becomes very difficult. But when you are a group of people, suddenly things become much more easier. So I think my earlier thought of doing IFP came from the idea that I understand films, how they are made across. And I understood that, hey, all the filmmakers I'm meeting during my internship don't have a single person to share their stories with. But when they come down to a film festival, suddenly they form a bond. They start new relationships. Suddenly a DOP meets a director, and then they start working on a project together. So I said, can I create a space where people can, again, like-minded people can meet from the film field? Because I, of course, was inclined to films. I understood that better than any other field. And I think that was the very initial thought that remained with me, that can I foster new collaborations which lead to people creating new stuff? Initially with films, and then, of course, as IFP kept on growing, from films we went to spoken word and design and music and a lot of different things across. And then we realized that what we were creating, probably what And this usually happens is what I started in 2011. For good 6, 7, 8 years, I didn't know if I am even on the right track or not. It's only in 2018, 2019 that I started getting a lot of validation when I met people who said, "Hey, today I am a filmmaker or I have won this award." But this is because I met one of my team member at IFP, or probably because for the first time I made a film at IFP. I didn't win. I made a bad film, but I realized that there is something about this as a filmmaker that I like, or probably this is a hobby that I want to convert into profession. And I think you helped me uh, show the path to a completely different field that I was unaware about. So I'm talking about 2011, 12, 13, when still most people wanted to become doctors and engineers. So I think that was a very refreshing change, because a lot of people said, "Hey, I never knew I could become a filmmaker." मतलब पता ही नहीं था कि मेरे में स्किल है. किसी फ्रेंड ने जबरदस्ती फिल्म बनवाया है एफपी में, एंड नाउ आई थिंक यही मेरा करियर बनने वाला है. सो दैट बिकम्स अ लाइफ चेंजिंग दिस. आई थिंक फॉर मी दैट थॉट ऑफ सीड केम फ्रॉम चाइल्डहुड कि इतने टाइप के सिनेमाज होते हैं, इतने टाइप के कल्चर्स होते हैं. फिल्म इज अ वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग थिंग टू डू. कैसे बनता है, हाउ डज इट हेल्प पीपल, एक्सेट्रा. आई थिंक दैट evolved as I kept on growing across.
That's lovely to hear, because I disagree, because you somewhere said that you're not a creator, and I would say that bringing people together to one platform and having a strong vision about how one can help a lot of people live the dreams and also keep the art alive. So I think that's a wonderful thing to see.
So I
Uh,
usually tell people that I don't make films. I
yeah,
make people make films.
that's lovely to say. So you talked about your dad a little, and I would say as humans there are two kind of skill sets and two kind of values also, you can say. One we acquire over the period of time, and also some we inherit from
Correct.
our parents, right? So I would like to know that what skills you feel you inherited from your dad specifically, and which really helped you in order to be here now.
I think the number one skill would be logic, and the idea that you should be thinking everything independently, keeping yourself at the center of the perspective, which is very important. A lot of times I see people around me, in fact मेरे साथ भी कभी कभी ऐसा हुआ है, that in the flow of things I tend to go across completely in a different direction, realizing that hey, this is not what I was meant for, or not having enough rational logic to think about कैसे होती हैं चीजें, क्या होती हैं, क्यों हो रहा है, हाउ क्या क्वेश्चन करना चाहिए. आई थिंक वो जो एक क्यूरियोसिटी होता है ना, क्यूरियोसिटी का कीड़ा, कि ये कैसे चलता है. For example, how does a particular thing work? For example, kal I saw someone while I was going home from office. I saw someone mowing a garden, and the first thing that came into my mind was, how does a garden mower work? So the moment I go into my home, सब सामान निकाला, I went to YouTube and suddenly I was searching about how does a garden mower work as a technology. That curiosity. So if you ask me, I know how a garden mower works. I can tell you how an LCD works. Everything around me. I think that curiosity as a skill, and then not just curiosity. What do you do out of that curiosity? Do you just kill that curiosity? Do you just probably think, अच्छा ये कैसे काम करता है, हो गया? Uh, a huge reason to that is because my father comes from a field jahan pe he is looking at earth from a very different point of view. So I have heard numerous times in my childhood that we are such a small part of universe that we don't even matter. Like universe kitna bada hai na. I think for the first time when I heard about it when I was 7 or 8 year old, I couldn't even comprehend what he was trying to say. He told me वो स्टार यहाँ से इतना दूर है. I didn't understand स्टार दूर कैसे हो सकता है, but now I realized that how much that has made sense, because every time I kept on growing, every time he told me about how small we are in relation to even the nearest planet to us, how small we are in terms of solar system, how small we are in terms of galaxy. Like अगर हम पूरी गैलेक्सी पे भी राज करते ना, तो भी हम यूनिवर्स का 0.13 डेसिमल के बाद 1 आता है ना, उतना छोटा पार्ट होते. सो जस्ट थिंक ऑफ इट, तुम तो एक गैलेक्सी के, एक सोलर सिस्टम के, एक प्लेनेट के, एक कंट्री के एक छोटे से इतने से पिद्दी से इंसान हो. सो आई थिंक दैट एंटायर idea of putting yourself in the center, saying that I probably with my thoughts I can move the world, but thinking that I am the only one who can always make a larger change, or thinking that I am the only one. I think those thoughts always kept away, because I think that's something my dad gave me, a curiosity and a rational logic to a lot of things. Whereas my mom gave me a very second part of it. She gave me the entire creative side, the artist side of it. So uh, last year, since Acha, you already know Mayank, right? So last year I attended a workshop with Mayank, which was a 1 hour workshop on how to make a mandala. And for the first time in my during the lockdown, for the first time in my life, I picked up a paper, a pen, and a brush to start creating, doing something. And I realized what fun it was. I think across 70 days in lockdown, I created 70 paintings completely. ऐसा नहीं कि बहुत कुछ amazing मयंक के level का create किया. I just did something good across, which people were liking around me. So I think my mom gave me that being artsy wala thing, doing something for yourself wala thing. For example, I right now I'm on a mission to create my own Lego city. So I am like a 32-year-old guy who wants to become mayor of a city. So I said, asli city ka mayor to nahi ban paunga, but I love Legos. I love creating through Legos, right? For me, that is where I can call myself creator. And that hobby has come to me completely from my mom. Like if you see me and my mom sitting together and making a Lego, you will be like, इन लोगों को खाने पीने सांस लेने की कुछ पड़ी नहीं है. अपने ब्लॉक्स लेते हैं, अपना किनारा पकड़ते हैं और अपने बैठ जाते हैं बनाने के लिए, और फिर 8-8 घंटे तक ना फोन उठाएंगे, ना देखेंगे, ना किसी से बात करेंगे, कुछ नहीं. लाइक फॉर मी दैट एंटायर क्यूरियोसिटी, चलो कुछ नया हो रहा है, कुछ नया बन रहा है, तो साइड में चले जाओ. लाइक मैं और मेरी मॉम, वी अटेंडेड अ वारली आर्ट का क्लास लास्ट संडे. सो शी सडनली कॉल्स मी अप एंड सेड, आज शाम को एक वर्कशॉप हो रहा है, मैं तुमको जूम लिंक भेज रही हूँ, तुम इस पे ज्वाइन करना. और मैं मतलब कंप्लीटली, द ट्रेनर इज फ्रॉम कैनेडा, my mom is sitting in a different city, I am in a different city, and we are creating together a new piece of art, learning something new. And then since that day, every day she sends me something, and every night I create something and send it back to her. देखो मैंने ऐसा बनाया. So yesterday she sent me Varli ke animals. So she's like, this is how elephant looks, this is how horse looks. I was like, acha, this is how the houses look. So we are trying to do those kind of things. So I think the good mix of science and arts has suddenly come into me. So my is I think something that I think I have personally gathered from my parents across. And I feel lucky about it because I've seen a lot of people around me not getting those kind of skills from their parents. So I think I just feel probably right place, right time, right parents wala situation ho gaya mere sath.
Thank you. This was actually मैंने काफी emotions feel करे while listening to you. And the one thing which clicked me was that the moment I finish this interview, I'm going to figure out where to find the ways of creating my own Lego house, not a city though. But yeah, it's really interesting because see, you talked about how your parents been traveling, you talked about science, you talked about art, and I see that this really brings idea of embracing the change, because kahin na kahin we as a generation been very restricted to or you can say not being so open to change, or
Right.
we become so comfortable with it. So I would say that you have been working for 10 years, I would say now, and I'm sure being an entrepreneur you have seen a lot of ups and downs, and maybe a lot of wow moments or wow days as well.
Right.
What I would like to know is that what kept you going? That's the one aspect.
Okay.
And so yeah, let's go ahead with this one first.
Okay. So I've seen a lot of ups. Thankfully, I haven't seen a lot of downs, or probably downs haven't affected me a lot. होता होगा, but I don't think so. Like होते रहते हैं यार, ऐसी चीजें होती हैं which you don't like, but not that they affect a lot. I think the problem that has started happening of late is मुझे ups भी affect नहीं करते हैं. Like I don't feel happy when things when good things happen across. I just feel very okay. I'm like, खराब भी होना है, अच्छा भी होना है. This is how business is going to go across. You don't have absolute control on your business. Like you don't have absolute control on anything except for you. So you can control yourself. You can say आज से मैं exercise करूँगा, but you can't come to office and say, hey, आज से मैं अपना model change कर दूँगा. You can't do that. You know how things are going across. I forgot what was your question. What keeps you going? Sorry. Okay. So for me, I think the larger idea that what I'm doing sitting in this room is making a change in someone's life somewhere. For the first 5 years, to be honest, I had nothing to look forward to because I didn't know if what I'm trying to create with IFP is actually even creating an impact. For me, impact is very important. And for me, even at larger scale, impacting hundreds or thousands of people makes me really happy when I see that so many people are benefiting, so many people are getting something out of IFP that probably, and even if I'm making a very small change in 2 days out of their entire year, I think that is where the happiness comes back. I'll give you an example. So till 2015 there was no realization. Till 2015 everything was like, कर रहे हो, नया setup है, every day there is a new challenge, वो तुम challenge problem solving करते करते ही चल रहा था. And then of course कब तक एक ही चीज करोगे? So you start getting bored. You are like, hey, I've been just doing similar thing. There is nothing that is motivating me, right? And in initial year of business, you are not even making so much money that it motivates you. So there's no money. There are a lot of course starting up troubles that you have. You're trying to solve them. Until I think 2015 is the time, 14 15, when I started getting mails from people or messages from people randomly who said, hey, this is how IFP changed my life, or I made my first film at IFP, and last week I won a national film award. And those kind of things that started coming to me. Now I have got thousands of such stories where people have written to me saying that how IFP changed not just their professional career, their personal life, their relationships. A lot of people who keep mailing across. There's this guy I know, VFX artist, used to participate in IFP, made a film that got him multiple awards, that got him admission into Canada, and met his life partner, and wrote a message to me on Instagram saying that had I not participated in IFP, I wouldn't have met my life partner. Just, of course, that's not a right example. I'm just talking about how you create impact and how it changes lives without us realizing. Of course, just that social media helps us realize it much more frequently now. But I think that keeps across going, and I won't say every day or every week, but every month I hear back from a person telling me, hey, this is what happened, this is how it was life changing. In fact, just last evening I had one of my person who works with our communication team come back to me and tell me, sir, आपने मतलब अभी मैंने किसी का कॉल आया था, and they were asking about if we can send them the high quality of their film because उनके पास से गलती से delete हो गया है. So I said, हाँ, we can send it across, but what's the purpose? So she's like, अरे, he is selected for an international film festival as a jury, and he wants to present his work there. And he said that everything started from IFP. So मैंने पहला film बनाया, बहुत गंदा था, I didn't win, but because I made it at IFP, I want to show it to students there. And this is some Melbourne or some film festival that he's going to show it across. So I felt so happy. I was like, he made a bad film. He knows that he made a bad film, but he still wants to show all the participants at the jury saying that, hey, I started from this level. So, and today I've probably made 5 feature films, but this is what I started from. So I think that keeps reinforcing that something that we are doing is right. I don't know how much right it is, but something that we are doing is definitely not on a wrong track. I think that reinforcement is a good reinforcement.
Right. And in fact, as an entrepreneur, I would definitely say कि ये वो छोटे-छोटे sign होते हैं which constantly reminds you that you are on the right track, you are aligned on your purpose, you're doing good things. So I definitely really I'm able to connect word to word what you said. Before we go into the second segment, my last quick question, which is also divided in 2 parts. One, let's go back 10 years from now, and I would say the time when you are starting IFP. One thing I would like to know is that what message you would give to a 10 years older back then, which is your current age. That's the one. And the second question is, considering your age now, if there is someone who is starting, let's say, another version of IFP at the age of 23, what message you would give to that individual?
Okay, very interesting. Okay, so if I have to give myself a message, my 21-year-old self a message, that would be about plan things better. I think for me, a lot of things worked across as a part of luck, right place, right time, content boom happening in India, IFP being the only organization running where we were trying to push people towards the content boom initially. So I think a lot of things just made a lot of sense. But something that could have been better was if planning was in place, if I could have thought of things in a longer term vision rather than shorter term vision. That only started happening since last 2-3 years, when I started seeing, hey, now what for next 5 years are going to look like, or next 10 years are going to look like. I think that is one thing. The second thing I would tell my 21-year-old self would be that create something unique. Try to be very different. Sorry, this is the answer to your second question. The thing I would want to tell to a 21-year-old who's starting right now is try to be very unique. Try to do something that no one else is doing. I've seen how good it makes you feel when you are trying to do something what no one else is even attempting to do. That itself gives you such a positive feeling, saying that, hey, I am trying to do something which probably no one else is even thinking about. For me, I think at IFP, everyone does film festival, but IFP is so different. It's so different that we don't even have a word how to call it a festival. So we started calling it a content festival, right? So I think do something different. You might fail, you might put a lot of things at risk, you might succeed. That's not important. But if you're doing something which everyone else is doing, you might probably end up being a part of a rat race. The good thing about being unique is you are never a part of larger rat race. Till date, I know what I am commanding as a festival, what kind of respect I can command. I know that because I'm unique, how it attracts a lot of people to IFP, because people say, hey, this is a great concept. We never saw something like this. And probably in last 10 years, we have still not seen something like this, which means that they are doing something truly different because no one else is doing something around them like this. So I think that helped us a lot. So do something unique. I think be very innovative. I think what kills a lot of new business is that people don't invest a lot of energy in being different. People invest a lot of counter energy in being similar to their competitors on and being, that's where people go wrong a lot of time. Another advice for someone who's starting up is like, uh, pay a lot of attention into making your venture a business. Don't keep calling it startup, and don't think that suddenly money is going to flow out of anywhere. Like, I've been telling this a lot of time, that only reason that a festival in India, a private festival in India, succeeded without a government grant, succeeded without a big corporate coming and funding us for 5-10 years, is solely because we thought of us very early as a business. We said, hey, as much as it is important for us to do run IFP, it's more important that we pay our own bills as well. Ghar chalna chahiye. You can't do things uh, just because you like doing it. A lot of people I see go into this entire passion thing, saying, oh, I am very passionate, so main kar leta hu. Are passionate is okay. Do you know how are you going to make money out of it? Because at the end, let's be real, you need to survive, you need to feed yourself, right? You can't be passionate, you can't hire a huge office and don't know how to, you can't hire a huge team and don't know how to pay their salaries. So I think for us that was a very differentiating factor, and I see so many people making that mistake. So there's this small boot camp that I've been doing for sales, and a lot of people I meet from sales boot camp who started up 5 साल से business चला रहे हैं, they don't know कि पैसे कैसे कमाने हैं. हाँ, गुजारा चल जाता है थोड़ा बहुत, but there is no growth because there is no understanding of how to earn money. So I think that would be two things: be unique, and then again know that it's a business. No one is here to do a charity. Make sure, of course, don't, if you don't want to earn large profits, it's okay, invest in more team members, probably donate that money, but know how to earn that money first, I think.
That's lovely. And I think this is what a lot of entrepreneurs don't talk about in the current hype of startups. So I am really grateful that you brought this up. Thank you very much for being part of the first segment. I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. And with this, let's move to the second segment called Spotlight. And this is where we share a recommendation with our listeners. So my recommendation for today is a kind of a movie, or you can say series on Netflix recently came up called Ray. And these short stories by Satyajit Ray. And I really loved how the concept came up because as per my understanding and with time, what I realized is that it takes so good direction and curation when you have to summarize the whole story in short span of time. And that's something one which I really loved it, and how contrasting stories they brought up. So that's my suggestion for today. Your turn.
Okay. I can recommend a book or a movie or anything.
Anything, yeah.
Okay. So something that I just loved, went through that experience not once but twice, is a book called Open by Andre Agassi. It is one of the most beautiful life stories that you will read. It is disheartening and heartening at multiple levels. Uh, as in, I never thought, probably it gave me a different direction to how life needs to be lived. I think after reading that, uh, it's a fairly huge book to read, so it takes good 10 to 15 days for you to finish it across. But the good part is you need to absorb what the person is trying to say. I think nothing teaches you more when you can actually look at a person's ups and downs and say, hey, this is not what I want to do, or this is not the mistake I want to make across. I think a lot of learnings that Open has.
Thank you. A quick two notes I made to myself. One is I'm going to read the book that you recommended, and second is which I also understood through the conversation, that you need to do new things every now and then in order to keep yourself authentic and creative also at the same time. So this is the promise I made to myself during the recording. So thank you once again for being part of the episode, and I personally really enjoyed it. And yeah,
I think that's a great beginning for you. So ending for a podcast, but great beginning for you.
definitely. Thank you, and thank you to our listeners. I will see you in the next episode.